Number 15, the Swarm. Guards always have to keep their eyes open, as they are usually outnumbered in their unit by inmates. Without warning, a situation can erupt, forcing an officer to fight for his or her life as they wait for help to arrive. CCTV at Pinal County Jail showed an officer enter the indoor rec yard when two prisoners run around the corner and begin beating him seemingly unprovoked. Luckily, a second guard quickly rushes to the scene and subdued the men with pepper spray, helping the other officer wrestle the two inmates to the ground before any serious harm can be done. In Cook County, Illinois, another officer had to use force to subdue an inmate viciously attacking him, but managed to get a security door open and into the facility of fellow guards, easily subduing the inmate. Mobile Jail in Alabama captured a horrifying moment when an inmate forced his way into a guard's office and attacked the officer inside. The reinforcing officer struggled getting the door open and aiding his co-worker, but the inmate continued to put up a fight before being restrained. The number of inmate on guard attacks is endless, and with a prison system where the rules of prison don't match the rules of the inmate, there is likely to be continued clashes for the foreseeable future. Number 14, leap to escape. When people are in a tight spot, they sometimes take desperate measures to escape. Inmate Kenneth Williams at Turner Goyle Ford Night Correctional Center in Florida was surprised when the cell door suddenly opened, and he walked out to investigate. Two other inmates snuck out and stalked him, cornering Williams in a nearby hallway. After a brief exchange of words, it became clear these two inmates were out to get him, and he made a run for it. After seeing he was again cornered, outnumbered, and running out of options, he leapt over the railing and onto the floor below. The would-be attackers watched and looked over the railing in shock, seemingly unsure of what they just saw actually transpired. There is speculation a guard or several guards were in on the attack plot, since the two attackers appeared to know the doors would open and they sprung into action. The motive behind Williams' attempted assault is believed to be gang-related, as Williams is the suspected leader of the New Manelli gang. Williams suffered from a fractured vertebrae and broken ankle, but survived his plunge. An investigation is ongoing as to the cause of the prison doors opening, but it is unsure if it will ever be revealed. Number 13, Andreas's Taste of Prison Life. Beyond Scared Straight was a show on A&E from 2011 until 2015. The show followed teens going through programs meant to have them experience prison life in order to steer them away from their criminal behavior. One clip that has gained widespread popularity is that of Andreas, a young self-proclaimed member of the Bloods gang. During his prison visit, he was introduced to locked up members of the rival Crips, who showed them their full anger towards his claimed gang. A prisoner forced him to do push-ups, while an officer shouted conflicting orders at him. At another point, Andreas was hoisted outside a prison cell, where prisoners inside shouted at him and tried to grab him from under the door. He began crying and recanting his claims as a Blood, apologizing for what is known as claiming. The prisoners then forced Andreas to peel an orange, threatening him if he didn't do so. By the end, Andreas was in tears and had been shown the scaled-back version of prison life. This episode helped cause controversy with the prison tour programs, with people calling them inhumane. However, supporters have stated no children are actually harmed and are simply being given a taste of prison life, not a full-scale version of the experience. If you're enjoying the video so far, please give it a like as it really helps me out. Number 12, Deputy Moon. Prison guards work in a stressful environment. In many prisons, guards are outnumbered by prisoners and rely on their equipment to regain control of situations. However, many guards have also used their attitude towards the prisoners to gain a mutual respect between each other. This is what saved the life of Florida guard Kenneth Moon in November 2009. While on duty in one of the blocks, a prisoner walked behind Moon's desk and began violently assaulting him. The prisoner got Moon in a chokehold, cutting off the guard's oxygen and sending the situation into critical. Several prisoners rushed to the desk, and it appeared Moon's ordeal was about to get worse. Suddenly, the first prisoner to arrive flew a hard punch into the attacker's face, sending all three men to the floor. More prisoners arrived and began prying the attacker's arms off of Moon, while another called for help over the radio. Eventually, Moon was released and held back to his feet, while prisoners subdued the attacker until help arrived. The entire attack was captured on CCTV, and other guards were amazed at how quick the prisoners saved Moon's life. When asked why they ran to help, they simply replied, "Moon's a good guy." Moon had a reputation as being cordial with the prisoners, treating them with respect, and in turn gained Moon respect amongst the prisoners. It was because of this, several men convicted of charges from robbery to kidnapping charged in to save Deputy Moon's life. Number 11. John Geoghegan. The Catholic Church has been under a lot of controversy over sexual abuse perpetrated by priests and bishops, as well as the church attempting to cover up the assaults. John Geoghegan was one such priest who was accused of sexually assaulting over 130 boys in 6 different parishes around Boston. Investigators also found significant evidence of a cover-up conducted by high-ranking church officials who actively moved him from parish to parish in order to derail the investigation. In January 2002, he was found guilty of assault and battery for grabbing a 10-year-old's bum in 1991. He was sentenced to 9 years at the Sauza Baranowski Correctional Center. While in protective custody, fellow inmate Joseph Druce managed to get inside Geoghegan's cell, rig the door shut, and proceed to murder the former priest. CCTV shows guards attempting in vain to enter the cell and save Geoghegan's life, but by the time the doors were opened, Geoghegan had perished. Having been strangled and severely beaten, Druce claimed he had been planning Geoghegan's murder for over a month, considering him a prize. Already serving a life sentence, Druce was tried and sentenced to a second life sentence, though has reportedly shown no remorse for his actions. Geoghegan's story of sexual abuse inspired Canadian rock group Billy Talent to write their hit Devil in a Midnight Mass in 2006. Number 10. Mexico prison shooting. Sometimes, external forces can lead to dangerous situations in prison. Ciudad Juarez, one of the world's most dangerous cities, is still engulfed in the Mexican drug war, with many cartel members ending up locked behind bars in the jail. In July 2011, members of a cartel armed with automatic weapons managed to break into the jail, then shot 17 rival cartel members before fleeing the scene. The resulting riot lasted almost a day before law authorities regained control of the facility. The perpetrators were believed to be under the orders of El Chapo Guzman, Mexico's most notorious cartel leader. He has been known for his use of violence against rivals, police, government officials, journalists, and anyone who gets in his way. He even ordered the massacre of a drug clinic against those attempting to kick their drug habits. The video of Guzman's assault on the jail shows just how out of control the drug war has gotten, with an almost archaic atmosphere within. Currently, Guzman is being held in a prison near Ciudad Juarez, awaiting extradition to the United States for drug trafficking and homicide. Number 9. Teen assault by guard. In the fall of 2008, 15-year-old Michaela Calhoun was arrested with her friend after they were pulled over in a stolen car. Calhoun was allegedly uncooperative and vulgar throughout the intake process, and guards were losing patience with her. She was led to a cell, and when officers asked her to take her shoes off, she crossed her arms and slightly kicked off her shoe. Suddenly, Deputy Paul Skeen lunged at her, kicked her, threw her against a wall before throwing her to the floor. Skeen and another officer then restrained Calhoun and then led her out of the cell. Calhoun admits to arguing back and forth with Skeen, but says the shoe did not hit any of the officers. Skeen claims the shoe hit him with force, leaving a large bruise on his leg. However, surveillance footage backs up Calhoun's side, with the shoe shown to not have hit Skeen or the other officer, and Calhoun not kicking her shoe away with great force. Skeen was charged with 4th-degree assault and pled not guilty in March 2009. Unfortunately for him and fortunately for Calhoun, the tapes of the beating appear to tell a story against his pleas. Number 8. The Kentucky prison fire. The last place to be trapped inside a fire is in prison. Fires in prisons are especially dangerous, since flames can cause damage to electrical equipment, trapping prisoners in their cells as they perish from burns or smoke inhalation. North Point Medium Security Prison in Kentucky was opened in 1983 and has an estimated 1,256 inmates within its walls. On the night of August 21, 2009, between 60 and 80 inmates rioted across the prison. A fire broke out as a result, with 5 buildings in the facility going up in flames. Before the riot, the prison had been in lockdown after a Hispanic gang assaulted a black and white inmate. Frustrations over the lockdown boiled over, and prisoners took their anger out on the prison itself. Residents in the surrounding area gathered to watch the flames extend into the sky, with the cause being initially unknown. Several small explosions were also observed, believing to be from electrical equipment. The prison's emergency response team managed to regain control of the prison, so firefighters could begin putting out the flames. Luckily, no one was seriously hurt in the riot and blaze, which is lucky considering the extent the flames traveled. Due to the damage, inmates were also temporarily housed in other prisons while the facility was repaired. It has since returned to full operation and still runs as of 2016. Number 7. Darnell Smith's rampage. For many, romance between a prisoner and guard seems unthinkable. However, this is exactly what happened between Darnell Smith and Trina Leha in 2001. Smith was serving a sentence in Stillwater Prison in Minnesota. The two developed a friendship and eventually a romance, kept secret to prevent Leha's career. Other guards caught wind of the affair and Leha was fired from her job. After Smith's release, he conspired with Leha to kill a former associate of his. On July 5, 2001, Smith and Leha murdered Bobby Holder before dismembering him and disposing of the evidence. Unfortunately for Smith and Leha, investigators quickly closed in and the two were arrested. Smith was given a life sentence and sent to the Oak Park Heights prison. On his first week in the prison, Smith discovered a flaw in the maximum wing of the prison. The door separating the out area with the cells could be easily jammed with a sheet, and so Smith sealed the gate shut and began taking his anger out on the cells and windows. He and other inmates smashed bits of concrete from their cell and threw them at the protective glass as officers watched on. Eventually, guards stormed in and subdued the prisoners. In his rampage, several cells were heavily damaged, and shockingly with only the prisoner's bare hands, Smith continues to serve out his sentence and is constantly watched due to his manipulative behavior. Number 6. Guantanamo's immoral practices. Located on the southern tip of Cuba, Guantanamo Bay is a military base and prison facility housing suspected terrorists. Since the prison opened, it has been the scene of controversy for holding prisoners without fair trial and suspected torture methods used on prisoners during interrogation. Waterboarding or simulated drowning is the most well-known of torture suspected to be used, but there is also reports of sensory deprivation and isolation. Humiliation is also widely used, including stripping of inmates, shouting derogatory comments at them, and forcing them to perform menial tasks. In 2012, BBC aired a documentary showcasing the methods of torture used in a simulation, having people experience life at Guantanamo Bay from capture to detainment. The program offers an in-depth experience to what life is said to be like at Guantanamo, and has participants in shock at the treatment they suffer. While it is largely scaled down due to safety issues, it is said to be accurate to the actual practices at Guantanamo. Clandestine footage of Guantanamo has also captured the arrival of detainees, showing them being carried in uncomfortable fashion and being strip searched outside. Talks about closing Guantanamo and returning it to Cuba has increased in recent years, but it is unknown of when that will be and where its prisoners will go once this is done. Number 5. The rampage of Sabir Chavez. Violent prisoners will wait for the perfect moment to lash out on other inmates and staff. On January 3, 2012, a prison officer was making rounds around his unit when inmate Xavi Chavez suddenly attacked him when the guard's back was turned. Chavez, who was detained on child prostitution charges, struck the officer with a metal pipe he pulled from his cell sink. Joining Chavez was another inmate who acted as lookout during the assault. James Flowers, a convicted drug dealer, rushed to the scene and pulled Chavez from the officer, allowing him to escape and press his panic button. Flowers continued to hold off Chavez and the other inmate as help was on its way. However, the situation escalated into a standoff as Chavez and his follower kept guards at bay on the second floor balcony, occasionally charging guards and sending them into retreat. Eventually, guards made their own charge and tackled the two men to the ground before finally restraining them. Flowers' actions were praised as heroic by the guards, community, and even the district attorney. Flowers, however, cut his cooperation short during the investigation to avoid being labeled a snitch. He is still credited with saving the guard from serious injury or worse. Chavez's motives remain unknown, and he has been charged with assault on top of his child prostitution charges. The guard received a metal plate in his head to repair the damage to his skull, and he has since made a full recovery. Number 4. Missouri State's eternal prisoners. With the amount of violence known to happen in prisons, it would come as no surprise the ghosts of those who died within the walls will linger long after. Missouri State Penitentiary had a long history of violence, which continues to echo even after its closure. One particular infamous incident is when a riot broke out, during which several inmates broke through the walls of a cell and murdered the inmate inside. In Season 8 of Ghost Adventures, they explored the prison during the night and captured several compelling pieces of evidence. Investigator Nick Groff was left alone in the isolation unit when he heard several bangs and people talking in the cell surrounding him. After returning to fellow investigator Zach Baggins, he discussed his experience when the two suddenly heard footsteps and a grunt coming from the isolation cells. where Groff had just come from. Baggins explained the amalgamation of negative energy is what leads to prisons becoming a hotbed of paranormal activity. Luckily for the Ghost Adventures crew, they managed to come into contact with spirits still serving an eternal sentence. Number 3, the guard strikes first. Sometimes it's not guards having to worry about inmates. On November 25th, 2014, inmate John Steckley from Curran Fromhold Correctional Facility in Philadelphia was returning to the general population when he began trading words and throwing insults at Officer Tyrone Glover. Steckley was calm during the confrontation, not making any physical threats towards Glover. However, without a second of warning, Glover threw a powerful punch into Steckley's face. The two began to struggle with each other until Steckley was restrained by other officers. Video of the assault surfaced on City Paper's news site, and outrage sparked across the nation. Before the altercation, Steckley had his arms at his side and made no motions towards Glover, nor did he appear to be any kind of threat whatsoever. Glover's motive has never been explained, but people believe it was high stress from the job which caused him to lash out on Steckley. This hasn't deterred critics from calling for Glover to face assault charges. However, Steckley instead received additional charges to the original ones, while Glover has faced no disciplinary actions. Number 2, Camagua Prison Farm Fire, and has several prisons filled to capacity within its borders. Camagua Prison is one such facility located in central Honduras. On the night of February 14, 2012, a large fire broke out in the prison. Initially, the inmates' calls for help went ignored, with prison staff believing it to be a hoax or trap. However, as the fire spread, a guard rushed to the cells and began letting prisoners out to escape the flames. The cause of the fire is, as of today, unknown, and is believed to be the result of a riot or electrical failure. Inmates deny the riot allegations, with survivors reporting a single inmate was responsible for the fire, with him shouting, "We will all die here." The fire lit up the night sky, and several small explosions could be heard across the area. Inmates escaped the flames through the roof, but as many as 358 perished in the flames, either from burns or smoke inhalation. The fire has stirred controversy due to the amount of time it took emergency responders to arrive, which was between 20 to 40 minutes. Many of the bodies were so unrecognizable, DNA was used to identify the deceased. To this day, it is the deadliest prison fire in world history, and it continues to be a hot topic of debate across the world. Before we get to number 1, my name is Chills and I hope you're enjoying the video so far. If you've ever been curious as to what I look like in real life, then follow me on Instagram at DylanIsChillinYT. I also have a Twitter at YTChills where I post video updates. I'd really appreciate it if you followed me, and feel free to send me a DM if you have any questions or suggestions. Number 1, Pelican Bay Riot. Prison can be an unpredictable place, and tensions run high between the various gangs and even individual feuds between prisoners. Pelican Bay State Prison in California has gained a reputation as a hard prison. As the only supermax prison in the state, only the most hardened of California's prisoners end up here, including the infamous Charles Manson for a brief period in 1997. On February 23, 2000, prisoners were out in the yard for recreation when the prisoners suddenly began attacking each other. Within seconds, the entire yard was a full-blown riot, and multiple inmates were stabbed and severely beaten. Guards attempted to gain control of the situation by firing tear gas and using batons to subdue inmates. One of the guards in the tower noticed several inmates stabbing a lone inmate, crowding around him and preventing his escape. Seen with no other choice, the guard fired live rounds into the crowd, striking one inmate in the head and dropping him. The rest of the yard heard the shots and quickly retreated to the ground, allowing guards to regain control of the yard. The inmate was killed instantly, and 15 others were injured by further gunshots. Staff recovered 89 weapons in the aftermath, and were in shock as to how quickly the situation boiled out of control. From the first fist thrown to the riot's end lasted 30 minutes, one of the longest and bloodiest prison riots in California's history. The video proves how unpredictable and chaotic prison can be, with most incidents beginning at the drop of a hat.